In the previous video, we talked about how to multiply monomials. A monomial is a term with no plus or minus, so it only has multiplication. So for example, in the first pair of parentheses, it's a monomial, and this is also monomial, because inside the parentheses, there's only multiplication. There's no addition or subtraction. And the same here. And also, when we do division, the top, the numerator, is also the multiplication, only multiplication, no addition or subtraction. And the same for the bottom. And in this case, it's multiplication, and the exponent also means multiplication. And also for this one, notice that the top is multiplication, bottom multiplication. There's no plus or minus. And also when you do exponent, it also means multiplication. But what if we do want to multiply something with plus or minus in there, or you can say more than one term. So there will be two terms. So we're talking about how to multiply polynomials. So for example, we have done something like this before. If I want to distribute a 2 to, let's say, x squared minus 2x plus 5. And what's in the parentheses is called a polynomial. And precisely, it's a trinomial because it has 1, 2, 3 terms. X squared only multiplication, so that's treated as one term. 2 times x or negative 2 times x only has multiplication. That's the second term. And 5, there's no addition subtraction involved, and that's just one term here. So we got a 1, 2, 3 terms. And if we want to multiply, 2 can also be considered as a monomial because it's one term. And we want to multiply a monomial with a trinomial. So in this case, simply put, it's one term times 3 terms. And so, of course, it's not just a monomial anymore. So we know that we can use distributive principle, as we said before. You just distribute 2 to every single term here. So we're multiplying 2 with x squared, and the 2 with negative 4x, negative 2x, that gives us negative 4x, and 2 times positive 5, that gives us a 10. So that's how we did it. Now, the questions we're going to do is, what if it's not a monomial here? If it's not a one term, what if this part, the one we just distributed, also has 2 terms? So let's change that 2 to maybe, let's start with the easy example, say a plus 2 instead of just 2 there. And times, I'm going to, instead of having a polynomial, maybe I can just make it a binomial, which has only 2 terms. So in this case, it's a binomial times a binomial, or 2 terms times 2 terms times binomial. So if you have learned something called a FOIL before, F-O-I-L, and you can use that rule. And if you have not learned FOIL before and have not heard of it before, and we're going to show you a different way to do it, which is pretty much using distributive principle twice. And also notice FOIL can only be applied to do binomial times binomial. If I have a binomial times trinomial, you can't do FOIL. But the way I'm going to teach you is going to be applied, can be applied to do any number of terms. So you can have 5 terms times 5 terms. So it doesn't matter how many terms, it's going to follow the same way. So when we do this type of question, when you have more than one term in each parenthesis, the idea is distributive principle, to use distributive principle. So what this means, it's like you got to distribute each of them in the parenthesis. We have 2 terms, so you got to distribute the first term, say A, to what's in the second parenthesis. So what we have is, I can slow down to do, okay, so we are going to do distribute A to the second parenthesis. And after you're done with that, and you're going to distribute a positive 2 to the parenthesis. And this step, you may skip that. You can do that in your head. So when you distribute A to B plus C, it's exactly the same type of question we did before. So we do A times B, it's AB. A times C, A times positive C is positive AC. And then we distribute 2 to that second parenthesis, and we have 2 times B plus 2 times C. So as you can see, we are doing one distributive principle and then another distributive principle. So you're using the distributive principle 2 times. And so usually this first step can be skipped. So when we do the question, you might be just be able to, let's try use a different color here. So you can distribute A to both of them. So you're gonna do A times B, and then you're gonna do A times C. After you're done distributing A, you're going to distribute 2. So you do 2 times B and 2 times C. So that's going to give you the answer directly. So A times B is AB. A times C is AC. And then 2 times B is 2B and 2 times C is 2C. So you might be able to skip that step right there. And the idea is the way we are written, the way it's written, it's like telling you got to do multiplication between these 2 pairs of parentheses. And how do you multiply them? You are going to multiply every term in the first pair of parentheses and every term in the second pair of parentheses. So you're not gonna multiply because the multiplication is between parentheses. So whenever you do multiplication, it has to be one of them has to come from the first pair of parentheses and the other has to come from the second. So I can do A times B, A times C, but I can never do A times 2 because between A and 2, it's plus, it's not times. And you can imagine this is like, for example, 2 groups of people. Say the first pair of parentheses, you can think of this as 2 students. And the second, there are another 2 students. So maybe these 2 students are from maybe a group, and these 2 students are from the second group. So I'm going to call it a group 1 and group 2, each pair of parentheses. And suppose you want students from group 1 to shake hands with every student in group 2. But inside the same group, you're not going to shake hands. So when these 2 groups meet, they shake hands. So they will shake hands between students from different groups. They shake hands. So how many handshakes do we have? So you can see student A from group 1 needs to shake hands with student B from group 2. And then student A also has to shake hands with the C from group 2. Similar, so that's how we get these 2. So like 2 handshakes. And then student number 2 needs to shake hands with the student B. You got 2B. And student 2 has to shake hands with the C from group 2. So you got these 2 right there. So together, we have 4 handshakes, which means 4 multiplications we did. All right. Just a side note, if you learned FOIL before, quickly refresh your memories. So if for anybody who is also interested in this way, FOIL, and we name each term in the parentheses. The first one we call it first, and then the second one we call it last. And also A and C thinking as like outside, and then 2 and B we can think of them as the inside, the inner ones and outer ones. So when you do multiplication as we did, when you distribute A to B, it's sort of like doing first times first. So that's how you get F there. And then when you do A times C, it's like doing out times out. So it's O there. And when you distribute 2 to B, it's like doing in times in. And then when you do 2 times C, it's also last times last. So that's what the name comes from. If you learned this before, I think you can stick to this way. But if you've never learned this before, you may not want to bother to memorize all of these names, and first and last and outer and inner. And so you can't have to remember that way. But there are many ways to help you remember. I personally just like to just do distribution, because this way can be applied to any other number of terms. So next, we can look at some examples here. So for example, the first one. So when I do this question, I temporarily just forget about this right here. So I'm gonna get rid of, I just forget about negative 2b. I'm just gonna distribute A to 3C and to D. So it's kind of like student A shaking hands with 3C and D. Okay, so when I do A times 3C, maybe I can slow down, A times 3C, and then do plus A times D, because it's plus right here. After I'm done distributing A, let me put that back, put negative 2b back. So I pretend that I don't have A because I'm done with the A already. So let's just forget about A. We're distributing negative 2b to both of them. So we're going to get negative 2b times 3c and negative 2b times d, positive d, it's just d. So after that, we can simplify it further. So A times 3c is 3ac. We like to put a number in front of variables. A times d is just ad. And negative 2 times 3 is negative 6. And b times c is just bc. Negative 2 times bd is just negative 2bd. And notice there are no like terms to combine. Neither of these, none of these are the like terms. So you just leave your answer this way. Okay, so now let's work on the next one, t plus 8 squared. And be very careful, this is not equal to t squared plus 8 squared, like you can raise each of them to the second term, to the exponent. Previously, we had a formula, which is a times b squared. You can do a squared, b squared, but that's multiplication. All those 5 rules we learned, these 5 formulas we learned, none of them has addition or subtraction. It's all multiplication or division. So there's no such formula, no rule for plus there. So make sure you don't do that. So we're going to go by definition. It's going to be squared means t plus 8 times t plus 8. You multiply 2 copies of whatever in the parentheses. So now it's 2 terms times 2 terms. So again, I pretend that I don't have 8. So I'm going to just do 2t times t. That's t squared. And then I do t times 8, that's 8t. After I'm done with done distributing t, I'm going to distribute 8 here. So let's put that 8 back. So now I'm distributing, I pretend I don't have t, I'm distributing 8. So I have 8 plus t and 8 times t, 8 times 8, that gives us 64. Now, in this case, we do have 2 like terms, and we can combine. So 8 plus 8, that's 16t, and plus 64. Okay, so that's how we do the second one. Now, in the third case, we have 2 terms times 3 terms. So be careful, we cannot use FOIL anymore. So the first 2, if you want to use FOIL, you can, but this one, you can't do FOIL. So you can still use what I mentioned, distributing property. So you pretend you don't have 2. And distribute a t to all 3 of them. So you do t times t squared. That gives you t third. Okay, so this is the formula we just learned, exponent rules. T to the first times t squared, that gives you t third. And then similarly, 2t times negative 4t, that gives us negative 4t squared, because t times t is t squared. And the t times negative 7, it's negative 7t. So after we're done distributing t, now let's put that, pretend we don't have t, put t2 back and pretend that we don't have t. So we're distributing 2 to all 3 of them. So we have plus 2t squared and the minus 8t, because 2 times negative 4 is 8, and the minus 14, 2 times negative 7. Now I found the like terms combined. These 2 are like terms, these 2 are like terms. So we get t cubed minus 2t squared minus 15t and a minus 14. In the last case, we have, again, 3 copies. You're not going to be able to, it's not equal to x third minus 2 third. Again, we don't have a formula for subtraction. So in this case, you will have to do x minus t times x minus t, x minus 2 3 times. So you multiply 3 copies of whatever inside the parentheses. And then you can work out these 2 first to multiply. X squared minus 2x minus 2x and plus 4. And after that, you can multiply these two, the previous example, to get the answer.